is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation with Ian Payne.
Good evening, it's Ian Payne sitting in for Tom Sawbrick, who's sitting in for breakfast all this week. Now, a coalition of some of the world's wealthiest people have signed an open letter urging governments to tax them more to pay for the coronavirus crisis. I will repeat that. They have asked governments to tax them more heavily to pay for the coronavirus. Some 83 millionaires from the US, UK, Germany, New Zealand, Canada and the Netherlands signed a letter organised by Millionaires for Humanity. Let me read you a crucial quote. To our fellow global citizens, they write, as COVID-19 strikes the world, millionaires like us have a critical role to play in healing the world. No, we are not the ones caring for the sick in intensive care wards. We are not driving the ambulances that will bring the ill to hospitals. We are not restocking grocery store shelves or delivering food door to door, but we do have money, lots of it. Money that is desperately needed now and will continue to be needed in the years ahead as our worlds recover from this crisis. Today, we, the undersigned millionaires, ask our governments to raise taxes on people like us immediately, substantially, permanently. We thought this was a very interesting story. One of the 83 is a man called Gary Stevenson. He's an economist. He used to work in the city as a trader, and he retired at the age of 27, having become a multi-millionaire. Gary is one of 4 British millionaires who've added their name to the group. I rang him earlier tonight, started by asking him where the idea for this letter came from.
This letter originates in the US from a group called Patriotic Millionaires. Obviously, you can probably tell I'm not from the US. I'm from London. I live in London. I was connected by a group called Tax Justice UK. So I've been basically looking around the area of tax reform ever since I quit the city a few years ago. I've been attached to this organisation, Tax Justice UK. I did a big article in The Guardian a couple of months ago saying how I think there's going to be a lot of inequality resulting from coronavirus, and the best way to fix it will be a wealth tax. And that organisation got in touch with Tax Justice UK, who put them in touch with me.
Why will a wealth tax, in your opinion, help various economies?
So I think the big problem that we're going to have in this economy going forward, well, there's a couple of things. The first thing is we need to get spending in the economy. And I think it's going to be very difficult to get that if the ordinary workers are struggling. And I think we're going to see that definitely going forward. The furlough scheme ends this month in terms of the first time companies have to make payments. Lots of people are going to lose their jobs. At the same time, we can see lots of data that high-income people have accumulated a lot of money during this crisis. But if confidence is low, the chances are that money is going to be saved. It's going to be put into assets like housing, like stocks. We've already seen stocks go up hugely. They've gone up about 40 or 50% in the last few months. I'm expecting to see houses go up more. If that's the situation that we're in, then a lot of ordinary working people, which are the driving force of the economy and the people we need spending, are going to be struggling. So if we don't find some way to get demand and spending power from the richest in our society, I think we're going to really struggle to get out of this crisis.
I'm a bit confused. You say stocks have gone up 30, 40%. Every index I look at, it sort of fluctuates every day. It's certainly down since March. Where are those stocks that are so wonderful coming from?
Yeah, the UK market is still pretty much down since pre-COVID levels. If you look at the US market, they're already above the levels, I think, at the turn of the year. Some of the tech stocks, such as the Nasdaq, are flying. I personally invested in gold, and gold is up hugely. They're still down on pre-crisis levels, but I traded in the 2008 crisis, and at this stage in that crisis, stocks were enormously down. We've seen a phenomenal bounce back since the bottoming of the stock market, much faster than anything we saw in 2008. And I'm predicting that will go up a lot more very quickly, even in spite of a weak economy. And that's a result of the huge amount of money printing that's happening at the Bank of England.
Do you believe that every rich person, say in the UK, would agree with you and would like to be taxed more?
I think it's very, very unlikely, to be honest. I'm sure you'd find a lot of opposition.
So, your view is that if the wealthiest get taxed, then that will be distributed? Is that trickle-down economics? What is that called?
Well, you could call it demand-side economics. I mean, I think perhaps we need to talk a little bit about the economic situation as it has been since 2008.
Okay.
Interest rates have been zero in this country, pretty much every country, almost constantly since 2008. And the reason that has happened is because the central banks are desperately trying to get people spending, and it's just failed year after year after year. And most economists expected that these very low interest rates would get people spending, but it hasn't happened. And my belief, the reason why that hasn't happened, is because most of that money is ending up going to very rich people who don't tend to spend extra money they get. And, I don't come from a rich background. I was poor. Now I'm not poor. I know people all through the spectrum. Richer people don't spend money when it's given to them in the same way that ordinary people do. So if inequality increases, you're going to struggle to get demand and get customer spending.
I'm fascinated by your story. I read that Guardian article that you were referring to. I mean, the very first line caught my attention. I made my first million the year Greece went under. I was 24 years old at the time. You were basically betting on gloom, were you?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. So I started working in the city at 2008, so obviously...
How old were you then?
Crisis. Sorry, how old was I then, did you say?
Yeah.
In 2008, I was 21 when I first started.
Okay.
And obviously that was when the crisis happened. And really, my job was to predict interest rates. So just a quick explanation. The central bank pushes interest rates down when they think the economy is weak and they want people to spend. And they bring interest rates up when they think the economy is hot and they want people to save. So in 2008, interest rates collapsed massively, hugely. So previously, they would move rates like 4.25 to 4.5. Here, they fell from 5.5 all the way to 0. And everyone expected we'd see a big surge in spending. So everyone predicted in 2009 we'd have a recovery. It didn't happen. In 2009, everyone predicted it would be 2010. That didn't happen. In 2010, everyone predicted it would be 2011. And by then, I started to become suspicious and started to really question these ideas of why is the spending not happening? What do we need to do to get the spending happening? And we had this big meeting with the senior guys at the bank where they explained basically the financial situation of all of the governments in Europe, US, Japan, most of the major governments in the world. Big deficits, big debts. I mean, that's very reminiscent of the situation now. And I couldn't help but realize, people I knew back home in a similar situation. They're running losses month to month, and they've got debts. If the governments are in debt and the people are in debt, it can only mean there's a small group of people who have a huge amount. And if you need to get the economy spending, which is what central banks have been trying to do now for 12 years, you can only get that spending from the rich. So I bet that because I couldn't see inequality improving, I went back and I bet that this is not a temporary crisis, it's a permanent crisis. And that's what I believe.
So we could all become millionaires if we bet on interest rates staying low, because this economic situation is as bad as I can remember in my lifetime. Well,
that's a good question. You would have been able to do that in 2009, 2010, 2011, 2012, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, or even the beginning of this year. You would have made loads of money betting on interest rates being low.
Oh, no.
Unfortunately, at the moment, pretty much everyone in the world thinks interest rates will be low forever, which is not a great sign for the future of the economy. I mean, we can look now at, for example, the interest rate you would get on 30-year bonds. At the moment, what interest rate do you think you'll get on a 30-year UK bond?
Oh, don't ask me, for goodness sake, Gary. I've no idea.
It's just over 1%, which basically means they think rates will stay zero for the next 20 to 30 years. So that is the realistic situation. So I've been saying for the last 12 years, rates will be zero forever. We're not going to come out of this crisis unless we address inequality. And finally, the world's come around to my point of view, which is probably not a great thing, unfortunately.
When you say all you multimillionaires want to be taxed more, I mean, what sort of percentage rate are we talking about? As I remember in the 70s, people moving overseas, because here they were being taxed. I mean, I think Heath was taxing people over 90% who earn as much as you.
So for me, the big thing here is, and I'd like to point out, the different signatories on this letter will have different opinions. But for me, and my background in economics, what I think, the big thing is we need to start looking at ways to tax wealth rather than just income. Because at the moment we have a situation where the richest in society are able to pay very, very low taxes because they don't get their income from work like the rest of us do.
Yeah.
And the current tax system is not really set up to tax very well this non-work income.
Yeah.
So you end up with a situation where, I made a lot of money, but I pay 50% on that. And I'm comfortable now, but I'm a lot less rich than, some of these barons of Westminster who are billionaires and have paid nothing. So we really need to develop a tax system that taxes this accumulated wealth of the very rich. Personally, I don't want to be going after doctors and lawyers and radio presenters. I'd rather be going for the very, very wealthy. And to be honest, I think if we don't do that, I think we're going to be in a very, very bad situation.
Okay, and the question I've always wanted to ask somebody with a lot of money is, what do you do all day? You've retired.
At the moment, I write articles trying to explain to people the importance of wealth inequality. I've actually been putting a video together this last week, and that will go up on my YouTube, Gary's Economics, tonight.
Okay.
That's explaining how the coronavirus is increasing inequality. We're going through the cash flows very simply, just to explain that. So, I'm working on videos. I'm working on ways of spreading this message that wealth inequality is very damaging to the economy. I don't need to do that. I don't get paid too much to do that. But the truth is, I made my money by betting on what's going to happen. I've done very, very well. I think I'm a good economist. I think I know what's happening here. I think that unless we fix inequality, things are going to be really, really bad for my family, my friends, for ordinary working people in this country. So, I'm coming on radio shows like this and trying to spread the word.
So that was economist Gary Stevenson speaking to me earlier, one of 83 very wealthy people who formed a group called Millionaires for Humanity, calling for themselves and other super